Welcome to part 3 of my Hackintosh from start to finish series. I hope you guys have been enjoying the video so far, so just to get right into this video, this is going to be on things to know before you install OS X. So you've already dipped your feet in the water, you've ordered your hardware, or you're still looking at your hardware. Now's the point in time where you really have to start learning stuff on the software side. You've got, like I said, you've gotten the hardware down, but software is where it gets tricky. The hardware, it's all listed for you right there, but the software is different for every single system. So with that said, there's just some things that you really have to know. These include bootloaders, DSDT, just some things like that. So that's what this whole video is going to be going over. It's basically a lot of key terminology and what these things do that you really should know. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you guys need to know is a bootloader. So what is a bootloader? Basically it's a file that you install to your hard drive that when you boot up your computer, it comes before the OS on the hard drive, if that makes any sense. So it sees the bootloader, and from the bootloader it lets you pick what operating system you want to boot into. So now the reason why this is so important on a Hackintosh is because the default bootloader that Windows installs, it won't see HFS partitions, which is what OS X uses. That will only allow you to see Windows and maybe Linux, I'm not sure. But I know with Linux it installs grub, so I don't think so. But either way, the Windows bootloader will not work. So you could have OS X on a hard drive, maybe formatted perfectly for your system with all your hardware, but if you put it in without a bootloader, your PC will not see it because the bootloader doesn't allow for it. So basically what this bootloader does is it emulates Apple's EFI, and basically what that is, think of it as, in a way, sort of a BIOS for Macs. Since PCs don't have this, basically what the bootloader does is it sort of emulates that through software, allowing OS X to boot. That's just sort of a layman's terms way to describe it. There's more to it than that, and honestly I don't even know the whole story behind that, but it's all out there, Wikipedia, many various sites if you really want to read up on it. But basically with bootloaders there's two main ones. There's Chameleon and there's Chimera. Chimera is sort of a variant of Chameleon, but it's from the TonyMac X community. By the way, check them out in the description. A lot of this wouldn't be possible without them in the community, so go ahead and check them out. So between the two bootloaders, I recommend Chimera because it has functions like graphics enabler, ATI config. There's all these sorts of things that you'll learn a little bit down the road, but they just make OS X a lot easier going, I guess you could say, with your hardware like your graphics card. The next thing you guys need to know about is called a KEXT. It's short for kernel extension. What it does is it does what it says. It takes the kernel and it extends it so it can support more hardware. Think of this as Windows with drivers. If you buy a new piece of hardware, say a new graphics card, oftentimes it comes with a CD which includes the drivers on it. You have to download your drivers or install them from the CD in order for the software to recognize and fully use the hardware. On a real Mac, you don't have to worry about this because Apple controls the hardware. This is where buying a Mac really helps you because Apple has certified that that OS will run on that hardware. No problems at all. You'll never need to install a single driver for any component unless it's like a third-party USB, maybe peripheral or something that just happens to need third-party software. But anything that Apple manufactures, say the Magic Mouse, any of Apple's accessories, all those drivers and everything, they're already in there, so it's as simple as just pairing it. If you reinstall your operating system on a real Mac, keep in mind this is on a real Mac I'm talking about here. On a real Mac, if you reinstall your operating system and you reboot, you won't have to install a single thing. It'll work. You'll have graphics, you'll have audio. You won't have to reinstall any drivers that you downloaded or anything like that. That's, like I said in the first part of this video, that's what you pay for when you buy a Mac. You can put your fears all to rest with that because everything will just work. So in the Hackintosh world, you will have to worry about these KEXT, these drivers that you have to install. Some of them do just work right out of the box. Like I said, it all depends on your hardware. Some motherboards will support audio right out of the box. Some motherboards will support, or some graphics cards, they'll have graphics right out of the box. You won't have to modify them at all, and they will just work perfectly for you. But other times you'll have to install KEXT. Like for example, if you have like a newer NVIDIA card, or even maybe an older one, a lot of these NVIDIA cards require nvenabler.kext to be installed on your system. Now there's utilities that can do this for you, and that's what I'm going to jump into next is multibeast. Just like Chimera, multibeast is from the TonyMac X86 community. Basically what it is it's the best post-installation utility you can ever imagine. It takes a lot of the most popular hardware, like many configurations out there that work great. And what's great about multibeast is that it's sort of a one-stop shop. You just download the app from their website, you run it, and it has pretty much everything. Unless you have like a really weird system, some hardware that's not very widely used, but pretty much everything you'll need is right in multibeast. So you just run multibeast and the interface comes up and you select user DSDT, which we'll get into in just a second. You can also give system definitions, which tells the computer that you're running, say, a Mac Pro or an iMac, and those actually do affect your performance. So if you have really nice hardware and you give it a Mac Mini, They're called SM BIOS files. If you tell the operating system that you're running a Mac Mini, then your performance will go down. Honestly, I can't explain this. I'm sure there's some logic behind it. I can't explain it, but it will happen. So if you have a big, powerful system like mine, use the Mac Pro system definition to get the full performance. In an upcoming video where I'm actually installing OS X, you'll guys see me use multibeast, and I'll talk you through it. But that's just to give you sort of an idea of what it is now. You don't really have to know everything about it at this point. Like I said, you're probably just waiting for your parts to arrive, or you're still just researching. Just know that it's a very nice utility, and just stick close to the things I said. And once you see the interface, you'll be like, oh yeah, this is easier than it sounds. Moving on to DSDT. Honestly, I don't know what this stands for. I used to. It's like differentiated something something table, something like that. You can research it online. That's not the point here. Basically what DSDT does is it makes your motherboard work with OS X. There's actually, with your motherboard, you can actually edit the DSDT. So it can talk to the software a lot better. So as stated in my last video, you can go ahead and check the TonyMac x86 DSDT database. And if your motherboard is on that list, basically what that means is someone has taken that motherboard, edited a DSDT for it that will work perfectly with OS X. OS X, once you install this, OS X will recognize every component on that motherboard, and so it's uploaded. So you can just download that if you have that specific motherboard, you install it, and now OS X will see everything on that motherboard. So if you just use a motherboard without a DSDT, maybe it'll work, it'll boot, but oftentimes what happens is network cards won't work, your SATA drives may just not work, they might be slow. So just certain things like that will go wrong with your motherboard. But now you can edit these yourself. I'm not sure how, I have no idea, I've never attempted it. I'm using someone else's work here. It's all on the DSDT database. So like I said in my other videos where I'm picking out hardware, I recommend getting a motherboard that is on the DSDT database. That way you can just download one file and you'll be all set. Now there are some systems out there that you can get working perfectly without using a DSDT. I'm not saying that those don't exist, but for some things, say like the Chimera bootloader, there's some functions within Chimera that do require a DSDT, at least to my knowledge. I think graphics enabler is one of them. So if you get a system that doesn't use a DSDT, I'm not sure on the compatibility with Chimera. I really haven't gotten into that, as every system that I have built or helped friends build or research, they've had a DSDT for them. So honestly, I'm not the best resource for a non-DSDT system, but you can also go to the TonyMac X forums and ask there. The next thing is frame buffers. Now this is all based on the graphics card. Basically what frame buffers do, once again this is sort of like a layman's breakdown term of it, they tell the computer how many ports are on your graphics card. They don't really tell the computer, they tell OS X how many ports are on the graphics card, what arrangement they're in. So say for example my card, the AMD Radeon HD 6850, the frame buffer I use is called duckweed, and what that tells the computer is that I have, I think, one DVI and a display port and some other ports, I'm not quite sure. But with this card, the frame buffer, it doesn't allow me to use all four ports. On this card I have two DVI, a display port, and an HDMI. Right now I can only use two monitors at a time, at least I believe so. So right now I'm using one DVI and one HDMI for my two displays back there. However, if I try to plug in, say, another DVI or the HDMI, one of these monitors will go off. Now that could also be due to Eyefinity with my graphics card. You need to have an active adapter, which I only have a passive. A passive, I believe, just transfers signal, whereas an active adapter would sort of convert it to a different signal. So I would have to buy one of those, which is $30, before I'll be able to verify with this card. But what I'm saying is valid in general for cards. If you don't have the correct frame buffer, then your card will malfunction like that. If I were to put this card in Windows, I wouldn't have that problem if I had the active adapter, but depending on your card, it could happen. That's just one more stage in this entire thing that you just really have to do your research. Check if your card that you're looking at can run dual displays in OS X. Just because you can run them in Windows doesn't mean it'll work in OS X. That's sort of, the whole ease of use factor going out the window here. So that's pretty much everything I think you guys need to know to get started. If you know all those things, then you'll be able to install OS X no problem. There's a whole world of information that I didn't really teach you guys about that I don't even know about, and there is more out there to learn, but just to get OS X installed and to run it on a day-to-day basis, that's pretty much everything you guys will need to know. So if you have any more questions, I'm at CPUKid on Twitter. Feel free to ask around on the TonyMac x86 forums. There's tons and tons of information there. Go ahead and check them out. That's where I learned a lot of the stuff that I know. But I've just done this so many times that I like to help people. So, like I said, if you have any questions, you guys know how to contact me. Thumbs up this video, please. It really helps. And look forward to the next video in my series, which is actually going to be time to install OS X. So while you're waiting for your parts to arrive, watch this video a couple times, go on the forums, research everything I talked about. DSDT, KEX, multibeast, all these different things that I just talked about. And the better you know them, the smoother your installation will be, the smoother your overall experience will be. So, like with anything, the better you know something, the better it'll act for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.